So, we haven't covered Blaire White in a while, and apparently there's this video of hers called LGB without the T. We've talked sides of things a bunch on the channel. It's a stupid idea. If you're in the gay community and you're like, we need to single out the transes because they're the ones fucking it up for everybody, it doesn't take long before your rights start getting talked about in the same disparaging ways. Like, you can only do the we're one of the good ones for so long. You are over in Blaire's side of the internet, and we might have to actually increase the speed. Who knows?
I got some without the T.
Some people believe that our community should separate LGB from TQ, essentially dividing us along sexual orientation and gender identity.
What is the... Why is that there? Why was that necessary? Who's here for that? Why is that there? Man, something about that rubs me the wrong way. Like, really, really rubs me the wrong way.
Go figure. You give them the right to marry, and all of a sudden they're talking about divorce. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are breaking down the divorce that is currently happening between the LGB.
Jessa, you know
going on. If you're not terminally online, although who are we? Who are you fooling? IA2S plus community.
So, of that acronym, it is silly. Constantly trying to arbitrarily extend that acronym, it creates more problems than it's solved. It really does. The plus, just having the plus at the end, is and was plenty for the most part. Because you understand what you're talking about then. You get it. Like, oh, okay, we're talking about people of a... Holy fuck! Ravi, why? Ravi just dropped $100 as a tip and said, get lerved. Thank you for being you. You deserve this. I don't deserve this, but I guess I deserve the ooh-woo that comes as a part of that. Sure. Sure thing. Aristotle says, I don't think it's silly, it's political with a purpose that's derived from Mao's Little Red Book. I still think it's silly. I think for the purpose of advocating for people's rights, you communicate less the more you push the acronym. The more you push the acronym outwards. I could be incorrect there. There's going to be some disagreements in my comment section about this, 100%. But that's an opinion that I've held for a little while, and I don't think it's untrue. I don't think it's untrue. Like, if you just want to use sexual and gendered minorities, if you want to use GRSM, if you want to say LGBTQ+, I feel like those are all perfectly substantial ways to argue. I think extending it outward does not actually help in rights advocacy. I don't. Not really. Clockwork Cookie says, I get the sense that after a while it defeats the purpose of being an acronym. No, it does. It does. Acronyms are shorthand. It's not shorthand anymore when it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 syllables, right? 2S, LG, BT, QI, A plus, 10. 10 syllables. 10 syllables. No. But anyway, we're not going to sit here and just vehemently agree with Blaire on a thing. That feels gross to do.
Also known as the Wi-Fi password community, as I like to call it. So there's a growing group of people who fall into the L, the G, and the B who want to separate from the T and the Q. And you guys know I stopped at T.
Razor says, check that tip value. Oh. Wait, Ravi, what the fuck? That wasn't a $100 tip. That wasn't a $100 tip. Ravi, what the fuck? That wasn't a $100 tip? I'm blind. I can't math. Ravi, why did you just spend $1,000 on the stream? Why the fuck did you do that while I'm playing WoW covering Blaire White? Thank you? But also, what the fuck? Dude! there's going to be comments that are just like, I guess when Cirrus's content was edited, so he didn't have to talk about the people who were in his stream. I'm going to get those comments. I know I'm going to. Make the dopamine go burr. It's making more than the dopamine go burr. It's making my confusion go burr. I am sick here and rasping out my content in the most back-ass of ways. Jesus Christ, Ravi. Thank you? Holy fuck. I'm gonna... Are you okay with me using that? Just eliminate a couple of the debts that I have that have monthly allowances. Not allowances, but monthly stuff that comes through. Because I feel like that's what I do with that. I feel like that's basically what I do with that. Is I go into some of my Affirm payments, and I go to one of my credit cards, and I just be like, deleted. Use it as you will. Yeah, I'm going to use it as I will, but I'm also going to be like, hey, are you okay with this money going to this? It's better than me going like, hey, are you okay with the money going to Chesburgers? Is it dropped a tactical new wook on one of the bills? Jesus Christ. I mean, it is that. It is basically that. I guess all redeems get turned into an uwu for the rest of the stream now. That's what's happening now. Ravi created it. Ravi did it. I don't feel well enough to slip into Sonic onesie shit. So, you know what? It's a tactical nuwook. But for the rest of the stream. There we go. Maki Himiko, thank you for giving your points, Frank. Oh. There we go. I'm just gonna have to do that. There we go. Okay, back to the content. I guess.
Like, I never even got to the queue. Never understood that one. Call me a traditional.
Wait, how do you not understand queer? What is there not to understand about queer? Rosalind Faye, thank you for the sip. Now to eliminate the dopamine rush, basically.
Call me old school. I'm just a trad wife like that. As a card-carrying member of the T, I'm going to give you my thoughts on if the two should be separated and viewed as something different, and if I view this LGB movement as something hateful, as, you know, the internet is trying to say that it is.
You can be ignorant and you can be ungrateful, but you ain't gonna speak for me or anybody else in this community as far as I'm concerned.
And we're going to react to videos from people on both sides of the issue to see where we land. So the basis of why gay, lesbian, bisexual people want to...
Also, Razor, thank you for gifting out a tier 1 sub. She's in the middle of her spiel right now.
Separate from the TQ is that they view it as inherently and intrinsically something different. So first of all, LGB, that's a sexual orientation, or those are sexual orientations rather. The T, you know, that's a gender identity. And I know that people have, you know, some issues differentiating between the two. Some people have an issue with that. They can't really understand it. But the long and short of that is LGB, sexual orientation, that's who you want to go to sleep with. The T, gender identity, that's who you want to go to sleep as. Very different.
There you go. That's fine. You know what? I actually like that explanation. That is actually a succinct explanation, and I think I'm going to borrow that. And I'm going to feel gross.
Tell me everything.
I'm going to feel gross knowing that that explanation came from Blair White. But I'm actually okay with that. Sure, why not?
Naughty secrets.
And said to me, it's not united in the first place. I actually agree with him on this point. So, I think the important thing to note, I don't think that queer communities have been fully united. There's always been animosity between the different areas of the queer community. I understand that. I think the important thing is not to say they've always been together. I think the important thing to say is they should be. Because here's the thing. The rights advocacy for one will always benefit the other. They will always trickle into new areas. Giving people gay rights is a step in the direction of giving people trans rights. Giving people trans rights is a bulwark against people who want to take away gay rights.
The other argument is that the general behavior from the TQ is a bad look for the LGB, and that it's eroding the social acceptance, progress, and rights of gay, lesbian, and bisexual people. And they cite things like LGBT acceptance among young people going down for the first time in like a generation, which is true. I mean, GLAAD released that study. You know, if
Do you know why that acceptance is going down? It's not because of the in-groups. It's easy to blame them, but like, this is like saying acceptance of Jews in Germany is going down. What are Jews doing wrong? It's not because of that. It's because propaganda against them is being
Worst
funded.
person in the world makes a point you can agree with. Fact. You woo.
Thank you, Ravi, for once again making Blizzy say the war words. I can't even be mad. Thank you for the 500 bits. I can't be upset. Thank you for the hydrate, Rosalind. I can't even be upset. It's victim blaming, right? It's ignoring the fact that there's a propaganda machine that is based entirely on the idea of making victims of queer people. It's ignoring the existence of that propaganda machine in favor of that. And it makes sense that Blair would do that, right? Because Blair gets funded by that propaganda machine. The audience that she is targeting with her content is an audience of people who are part of that machine. Invariably. Now, there's another aspect of Blair's audience that we have to talk about, though. I am still sick, so I'm having the trouble breathing. But there's an aspect of Blair's audience where she's not just getting right-wing people who are looking at her as one of the good ones. We know that there's a bunch of people who are right-wing and then consume copious amounts of trans porn. I'm going to go ahead and say, just unequivocally, that a part of Blair's audience are those horny right-wingers. They're not just trying to see Blair as one of the good ones. They're also trying to see Blair as a sexual object for them as well. I'm willing to die on that hill. I'm 100% willing to die on the hill that she's cultivated an audience of people who are just like, you know what I hate the transes, but I'm 90% certain they are in there in her audience. And it would be hard to convince me they aren't.
GLAAD is releasing a study that is bad for gay people. It's probably true. Even more shocking, I guess it's shocking, is that support for gay marriage is plummeting in the United States. And
that's not shocking either, because the same people who are fighting against trans people in propaganda are also fighting against gay people. And it is a benefit to them for you to blame the trans people instead of the people actually responsible. People like PragerU, people like the Koch brother, people that are actually working on funding conservative, and in America that really just means regressive a lot of the time, propaganda. People who are actively funding that, the Crowders, the Knowles, the Shapiros of the world, those people, they do not care if you are trans or gay. Oh, they'll fuck you all the same. CPAC. Every time CPAC comes to town, gay brothels definitely have an up spike in business. They'll fuck you all day long, but they don't care. If you're any flavor of queer, they want your rights to go away. Generally speaking.
There was a time not that long ago, I would say maybe even like 2 or 3 years ago, where you couldn't even find two people to sit in a room and debate that issue. It was a dead issue. It was dead-id. Like, no one really cared. Like, at most they didn't like it, but they were like, whatever, they can have, you know, their thing.
And then they saw that they could fight against it.
Thinking that, and it is in part due to, you know, the activism coming out of the T's and the Q's. So I have
no, it's really not. It is really, really not. This is a way to victim blame. This is a way to go, no, the people who are directly affected by this in a negative way, they are stripping their own rights away. They are harming themselves. But the reality is, those propaganda machines, they are operating with or without the trans people participating, with or without the gay people participating. It's just easy. It is the easy road out to take something that most people don't understand, like gender identity, and use that as a hill to die on. It's very, very easy to do that. Most people you ask on the street are not going to be able to explain gender identity. Most people who you ask on the street are not going to be able to be like, oh yeah, no, I read Performing Gender from the 1980s, that qualitative research study. They're not gonna do that because they don't have a horse in that race. They're just normal everyday people going out buying their Starbucks. But those are the same people that it's easy to show like videos of libs on TikTok acting like shrieking angry teens and then going, look, this is the problem. This is the problem with the gay community. Do you see this? It's very, very easy to look at that and go, oh yeah, no, if you have no education on these issues, then you can look at that and immediately go, yeah, no, I understand. These are the people who are stripping rights away from everyone else and not, you know, the people who are involved in legislating those rights away. Not them, no.
Have almost complete indifference to if this divorce happens. I don't think it will. I don't think you're going to train people to, you know, cite a new acronym, although maybe I'm wrong. You know, it's changed so many times, although people only seem to want to add to it, not take away from it. I've never understood why everything was grouped in like that. You know, I think that the complete rejection of individualism in modern society is a huge part of the downfall of modern society. I think that way too many people use we as a pronoun. Way too
the downfall of modern society. This fucking shit. People freak out about the downfall of modern society over everything. Video games, the downfall of modern society. The gays, downfall of modern society. I saw a woman with a dick and my dick got hard. Downfall of modern society. Like it. Look, modern society is here. It exists. It's not just gonna randomly fall because of decadence, TM.
That's a big red flag, by the way. My biggest red flag. If you ever catch anyone using we as a pronoun, we got an issue. If you're talking for...
So what, do you have somebody who's plural and they're using a pronoun for being plural? That's a... no. That could be somebody with DID. That could be somebody who's two-spirited. That could be any number of things, but it's okay. Like, I've met plural people. There's nothing wrong with them. Whether or not you agree with them being plural or any of the data about, you know, DID or anything like that, I largely don't care. So you mean like the Queen of England?
Or and as and from within a group rather than for your own being. You're not really my kind of person, right? Like whenever I'm talking, I'm not talking for even other transsexuals who agree with me. I'm talking for me, for Blair White, for this individual right here, because I'm only in this body. I have this one life and this one spirit, and my brain is my own. Way too many people only know how to think if it's groupthink, and that's an issue for me. So, you know, I've never felt an inherent camaraderie with gay people or lesbians or bisexual people at all. You know, I've barely felt camaraderie with other transsexuals. That was one of my first realizations when I transitioned and I sought community. You know, when I realized I was trans, I started going to trans support groups and I was like, okay, let me find a community within the T. Didn't find it. In fact, was very repelled by it, was very turned off by it. It was very scary. It was like, oh, this.
Is it because you as a person happen to exemplify the type of person who would throw all the other trans people under a bus? Is it maybe hard to find community with a bunch of people who you actively stab in the back all the time for money? Is it perhaps because of those reasons? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I don't know. Just thinking of who Blair is as a person and how hard it would be to, like, be friends with her for any amount of time. Just, like, me as a cis person who happens to be, you know, dating a trans person, who happens to have plenty of friends who are various shades of queer, it would be very hard for me to be a friend of Blair White. Because we would come into conflict a lot. So, I don't know. Maybe that's why. I could be wrong. I also just want to say that, like, just in general, finding a community of people because they are gay or because they are trans, that can trauma bond you, sure. But that's not actually a good way to form a community. Your common interests, you're not really building off of common interests there. So if you've got a group of, you know, gay and queer people, what do you do when you put them all into a group? What commonality do they have, aside from Republicans wanting to fuck them both legislatively and also at CPAC? Like, what's the commonality there? Largely, you're not going to find some. It's one of the same reasons as, like, why religious communities fracture as often as they do. You need something besides that for building community. You need something besides just those things. You need a shared hobby. You need shared goals. You need shared interests. Being gay is not an interest. Being trans is not an interest. Only if activism is your personality can those things be the case. So I can understand trying to find a gay or trans community, and I can understand the appeal to doing so, but that's not going to be the formula for finding a healthy community for a lot of people. You're going to need more than just, they are also gay like me, or they are also trans like me.
This is a cult. Okay, never mind. Gonna just go back to being just Blair, which was a good thing. But a lot of people get caught up in that cult, so that's a bad thing. And, you know, the resentment that some gays and lesbians feel towards trans ideology, we'll say, is pretty easily understood when you look at really any detransition story, because if you look at the primary victims of people who are put through the, you know, medical pipeline of transition and then come to...
So the medical pipeline of transition is a myth that a lot of right-wingers use to try to argue that we have a, you know, from farm to factory pipeline that makes people transition. We don't, though. Most people who have actually transitioned can tell you from experience that it's difficult to do so. It's not the easiest thing in the world, and it gets harder and harder every day. It's difficult to wrestle with your doctor about getting your HRT prescription. It's difficult to wrestle with your doctor to get your to get a body modification surgery. It's difficult to get those things hammered out. They don't just happen automatically at all. But okay, let's pretend there's actually a pipeline there.
Regret it and come to realize it was a mistake. They're always gays and lesbians for the most part. I mean, obviously not all the time, but most of the time. You know, it's a feminine gay man who was convinced by that community and brainwashed that that means that he must be a girl and he must castrate himself. You look at, you know, tomboy.
I very rarely see anybody say that somebody must be trans. I've never seen somebody say that somebody has to castrate themselves. I have not actually seen that shit. Unless the only experience you have... And I've seen this comment. This comment has been in my section before. Where somebody has been like, look at Mr. Garrison in South Park. Mr. Garrison is not an argument. But they'll do that. They'll be like, oh yeah, no, see? Here's the evidence that people detransition. I watched South Park and I saw Mr. Garrison. That's not an argument. That's not evidence. That's a cartoon. South Park's good for a lot of things, but sociological study probably ain't one of them. Just speaking from experience. Also, it's important when talking about people who detransition. It's not that we try to invalidate their stories. There are people who detransition and have valid reasons to do so. But the important thing to remember is that statistically speaking, there's not a lot of people who actually do so. People who are trans are already less than 2% of the population. People who detransition are 3% of that number. And of that number, the cited reasons that people detransition, most of the time, are not personal want to detransition, it's societal pressure. So you've got a percent of a percent of a fraction of a percent of people, and within that small bubble, you have people who retransition afterwards or say that, by the way, society pressured me to detransitioning. Largely speaking, sorry for the cough, guys. Largely speaking, those are not numbers that make me confident. And those never will be numbers that make me confident in any type of reporting on the issue. I will not be confident when somebody says, oh, no, look at this one tiny anecdote. And when we're talking about detransitioners, we are talking about a series of microscopically small anecdotes.
Ways, you know, we have hashtag save tomboys I've seen like on Twitter trending because a lot of tomboys are being gaslit and brainwashed into believing that they must be boys because they have.
Oh my God, we unironically have saved the tomboy discourse. This is shit that I'd laugh for the quartering. I laugh at Jeremy for falling for this shit. But I can't even say it's falling for it. Because Zilbear, thank you very much for the hydrate. A rasp and a cough, a need for a hydrate. I do have that. Agamotto, thank you for redeeming your points that because of Ravi or Uwu. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating because I know that people like Blair know better. But then again, she was the one who did a video about how right-wingers grift the news and how she was going to stop doing that, and then she just started doing it again, so who knows.
Have, you know, masculine tendencies or they are tomboys. And that's a pretty clear explanation for me as to why that resentment is occurring, or at least one of the reasons. And, you know, I think I maybe went to like...
No, not really. This isn't how we do data analysis. You don't grab a couple of anecdotes and then be like, this explains the thing for me for all 300 million people in the United States. You don't use a small series of anecdotes. That's not how we do science. There's qualitative research, which is when we have a small sample size, but we are incredibly thorough with it. And then we have quantitative research, which is when we seek larger sample sizes for polling data, stuff like that. A couple individual stories are neither qualitative nor quantitative. They are anecdotes, and the plural of anecdote is actually not data.
Like one gay pride parade when I was maybe like 18 or 19 years old, just because I was day drunk with my friends and we went. And, you know, even at that time, I was kind of realizing that I was a transsexual and that I wanted to transition. And, you know, maybe thought that would be a place where it would make sense for me to go. And it really wasn't. You know, I didn't relate to gay culture at all. I don't relate to like the drag race watch parties and the gay stuff. Like I respect it. And I'm not saying this in a negative way. I do respect, you know, the things that make gay culture fun for certain people, but it's not something I've ever truly related to. It seemed like for the longest time that the LGBT movement has just been allergic to optics, right? Like they just let the worst behavior go and they will always defend it at all costs. They will always double down because historically that's what the movement has done. And it was actually smart in the past to do when there really were unfair, you know, critiques being launched against the movement, you know, back when there really was a big anti-LGBT problem. And it's kind of swinging back.
Wait, back when there really was an anti-LGBTQ problem? Bitch, you've been on Louder with Crowder. You literally cited his transphobia as the reason you didn't want to be on the show before, and he's one of the largest entertainers in the right-wing sphere. What? You don't get to be like, it used to be a problem, but now, when conversations about gay marriage... You literally pointed out that gay marriage being stripped away is a conversation happening in right-wing circles. You said that yourself. Those are words you used. You don't get to use those words and talk about the ways in which these rights are, oh, actually, now they're getting stripped away and blame it on the trans people, but then also be like, it used to be a problem, but now it's not. My God. Alexa, look up the definition of doublespeak for me, please.
Back now, but you know, the days of Matthew Shepard, and there wasn't really room for people to admit that the community had anything wrong with it because they were fighting for their lives and they were fighting for their rights. Well,
is it perhaps a difference of the internet not existing back then? We don't know about a lot of the internal disagreements that were happening then because we, as a community, did not have the rapid access to information we have now. Different tools mean we have different information. We have a tendency to romanticize a lot of stuff in the past. And a lot of times we'll ask, like, how did people come to certain conclusions? when we take for granted that we live in an information age. There could have been just as many internal struggles. We just don't see them publicly because there wasn't a Twitter back then.
Post rights, like post getting rights, the movement has really derailed. And that's clear to anyone with two brain cells to rub together. You know,
In which ways has it derailed? Like, Drag Queen Story Hour exists, so the gays have gotten out of control? Like, what?
Oh, and that's another thing, you know, gay marriage, that was the big fight, right? Like that was the thing that when I was a kid, that was our like modern civil rights movement to an extent. Obviously that's kind of dramatic to compare the two, but you know what I'm saying. And
no, it's not. What the? Wait, hold on. That's kind of dramatic to compare the two. Bitch, what was Stonewall? What the fuck do you think Stonewall was? Yeah, no, the civil rights movement, that had a lot of violence and problems with it because that was actual human rights, but the gays getting their rights, that was just totally different. What the fuck was Stonewall anyway? What was the violence that happened there? What was the conversations about, you know, truckers and gay truck stops? Where was all of that happening? Oh, right. It was in the past, so I forgot it existed. I guess.
everyone in my generation was on board with that. But what happens is...
No, they weren't. Everybody in your generation was not on board with that. We are... If Blair is from my generation. We are both in the 30s area of age range. Here's the thing. People in my generation have this idea that we solved civil rights. There is this myth that we solved civil rights in the 90s. And then suddenly it got worse. The internet has allowed us to put a spotlight on issues that have been present for a long time. But there was never a point where we had solved civil rights. We got better. We got better about a lot of stuff where civil rights is concerned, but we didn't solve them.
There was an industry built on achieving those rights. There were groups like GLAAD and, the Trevor Project and all these groups that, do you think that's all just freelance work that all these activists were doing? No, they were raising billions of dollars. Make no mistake, it is a billion-dollar industry to fight for LGBT rights. And that's why once you achieve them, you have to invent more to keep everyone's...
What? That's not how this works. What? Okay, so here's the thing. Trevor Project. Are people who are queer still trying to kill themselves? Do they still get kicked out of people's houses? Do they still have their rights argued about on state legislature floors? Yes, then that activism still has a purpose. We didn't hit a magic human rights button and suddenly things are different. That's not how history works. It's a process. It always has been a process. There's a lovely quote. There's a lovely quote. And it's not even a quote. It's more of an idea. But everybody has a fun idea in their head. Just ask yourself right now. If you could take the knowledge you had right now and go back in time, what would you do? Can you foresee all the ramifications from everything you could do 30 years in the past, 50 years in the past? By and large, people have this idea that they want to go back in the past and they have to be careful because they might change something small in the past and it will affect the future in such a huge and profound way that it would be unrecognizable from what it is right now, and that's a danger they have to be wary of. And yet somehow the same people who fantasize about that are really terrible at understanding that the past was just your present 30 years ago. Which means you could do the exact same thing right now. If you think that a little thing could have a huge impact back then, there's nothing magic about the present. There's nothing magic about the here and now that means that your actions don't have those same ramifications. You just can't see those ramifications yet. And that's the thing that's hard for people to grasp. Likewise, when we're talking about civil rights, people have the same type of blind spot when it comes to the past. They look at the past and go, oh, look at all the things we accomplished. We got here now. That must mean things are better now. That must mean things are different now. Things might be different. They might be better, but it's not a binary. The goal wasn't make things better. The goal was make things right. And if things aren't made right yet, as evidenced by people still fighting tooth and nail to keep marriage license while being able to discriminate against gay marriage, Tennessee trying to have a special type of marriage only for heterosexual people, these fights are still happening right now, so there's nothing special about the past that makes it any different than than the present in terms of ability to change shit. People are still changing shit in the here and now, right now.
Not defile these mysteries.
Paycheck coming in. And the fact that people don't see that, I mean, is just...
Also, an industry making money does not automatically mean there's no morals in the industry. For things to survive in a capitalist society, they have to participate in it. They have to make money. There's nothing about the ability to make that money that makes something immoral. Making money is not an immorality.
It's wild to me. I'm like, wow, okay. So people think everyone's just doing this for free. Okay. You know, but even that big right, gay marriage, that wasn't something that actually affected trans people, because
small fry. Thank you very much for redeeming your points for
all. You know, legal sex and gender on your paperwork, which was something that was available in many states even before gay marriage was passed. Trans people could always get married, and you know, there was never.
So, are we just pretending that trans people aren't gay? Are we just pretending that gay trans people don't exist? Okay.
An issue with trans people using bathrooms until people made it an issue. Until...
Do you want to know who made trans people using bathrooms an issue? Right-wing people. Not left-wing people. Right-wing people, Blair. Like you.
You know, it became this political football. Trans people were always using bathrooms. So for the most part, actually, beyond people just not having a great understanding of the tea, there weren't that many things lacking as far as their rights. In fact, I don't know. I've always been able to buy a house, buy a car, have a job. Like, what are these rights I'm missing?
Wait, you... Okay. Okay. I'm not in a position right now to Google this, but there are people right now in several states who do not have the ability to change their gender marker on their birth certificate or change their gender marker on their ID. There are people right now who live in at-will employment states who can have their jobs taken away from them for being trans. There are people right now who do not have access to HRT because legislators are trying to strip that right away from them. It's a very privileged position to be in, to just be like, what rights don't I have? No. There are rights that a lot of trans people do not have right now. And if you don't believe me, there is a video that I did with Luxander ages ago on trans rights, the way that we talk about them, the way that we work for them, and the rights that are not being held by people. Did you know that in Florida, if you are a trans person in a bathroom that other people decide does not match your sex or gender, they can try to file, however successful they will be, they can try to file against you to call you a predator. Like, that's a thing that can be done in Florida. That's not a thing I have to worry about as a cis person. Don't do this bullshit. What rights don't I have? Look at me.
Please inform me. So if the LGB separates from the TQ, I'm not losing any sleep because I don't consider myself part of any group anyways. I'm Blair White. I'm one person. We is not my pronoun. And in fact, how about we just ban the whole thing entirely? Because the fact that people that consider...
She said disband here? Hold on.
And the whole... I'm Blair White. I'm one person. We is not my pronoun. And in fact, how about we just ban the whole thing entirely?
Okay, disband. I see why it says. How about we disband the whole thing? No, because here's the thing. Just like how there are allies that have to ally themselves with trans people with gay people to get their rights, compartmentalizing yourself does not work politically. It is the least effective thing you can do. This is the reason why the definition of atheist was extended in such a way that some people legitimately argue it includes fucking rocks, and it doesn't include fucking rocks. It's a political move. It is a move done for the purpose of expanding the outreach and participation and membership of a group to allow them to swell their numbers for political gain. It is a common strategy. And when you are fighting people who use their own bullshit propaganda tactics, like right-wing people tend to do, then it's an okay strategy to use. It's an okay thing to... Man, I can tell I was not ready to get back to streaming today because my voice is just... It is shredding. It is shredding as I go. This will probably be the last topic that I do today, because my voice is getting worse and worse as the stream goes.
Because the fact that people that consider themselves to be individuals like myself still receive, to some extent, like a collectivist blame for the bad behaviors coming out of any one of the letters. Because make no mistake, even though there's a lot of bad stuff happening from the TQ, all the drag queen story hours, I know that, you know, a lot of YouTube channels, when they do videos about it, like to put, you know, the word trans and then use a thumbnail picture of a drag queen, but 99% of those drag queens, you know, being inappropriate around kids are from the G. Those are gay men. Those are not trans people. So make no mistake.
Holy shit, she understands that. I'm, like with most things Blair White, I'm surprised she understands that.
Everyone's kind of making everyone look bad. So how about we all disband and learn to just be individuals and speaking for ourselves? And I think that would actually...
No, that would not work, because politically that can't work. Politically, people are not individuals. Politically, people are groups. As much as I would like to argue that individualism is better and it's better to have people who don't represent everybody else, I want to agree with that. And to a degree, I do agree with that. Like, every trans person does not represent my partner. Every gay person does not represent one of my friends. Every one of these situations does not represent everyone else. But politically speaking, the worst thing you can do is atomize, is individualize. Because individually, you cannot be a pack. Individually, you cannot, you know, fund a political movement. Ram says, Blair's going to be so surprised that if the right gets what they want, she's going to get gassed with the rest of the gay people. Look, Michael Knowles, when he said we need to eradicate transgenderism, that would mean eradicating Blair White. And I hope she knows that. I hope she knows that.
Really be the best thing for the community and the world. But let's see what people from both sides have to say about it, because I'm sure that will be interesting.
Never understood why the T was with the LGB. I never understood it. What does trans have?
Because their rights are taken away by the same people in the same way. That's why.
To do with gay or lesbian. It has nothing to do with it.
I also will never understand why my sexuality is in the same category as an ideology that actively works against my own interests. I'm gay because I'm attracted to men. If we redefine what a man is, or we can't define what a man is, you're erasing my sexuality. Also,
nobody's erasing your sexuality, you dumb fucking moron. Can I... British people in the chat. British people in the chat. Can I have a C-word pass right now? Can I please have a C-word pass? Can I just look at this person and call them all kinds of terrible words right now, please? I just... How stupid do you have to be to think, hey, this is erasing my sexuality? No, it's not. If your sexuality is liking men who were born with dicks, okay, cool. Trans people existing does not take away your ability to like men who were born with dicks. I'm straight, and I like women. I don't care what genitalia they have. My straightness isn't stripped away by getting better about defining gender. It's not.
My sexuality is a fact that is based in reality. Changing your gender is not a fact based in reality. Now,
I wonder if Blair is going to give any pushback on that. I wonder. Votes in chat. Is Blair going to give pushback on that?
you deserve respect. You can live your life however you want to live. I don't care. It personally doesn't affect me. But it does affect me when we're lumped into the same category as if it's all one when it's not. As we're seeing right now, the radical T's in the alphabet are targeting children and creating animosity towards the gay community as if we want this when it has nothing to do with us.
So I do agree that, you know, the T is targeting children in the sense that there's an entire medical industry that is preying on children. And
oh my, again, this myth. If this were happening, we would actually have more trans kids than what the numbers allow for. We have more kids who are identifying as trans now the same way we had more kids that were identifying as gay as society became more accepting of gay people. But those numbers aren't much higher. They're about what we would expect. Also, people like Blair have stated themselves that they realized that they were trans at 5 years old. 5. People like Blair are the ones that said that they figured out they were trans as children. But that right-wing grift money, it's good, isn't it? Isn't it good?
And I've spent my entire career speaking that, you know, the T is targeting children in the sense that there's an entire medical industry that is preying on children. And I've spent my entire career speaking against that, you know, gender ideology is being taught in school. But let's also not get so ahead of ourselves, because need I remind you of the choir, the gay choir, exclusively from the G, that sang this?
We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them.
There's clearly an issue that everyone is kind of having with just managing to stamp out the groomers within the community, which...
Is that groomers, though? Are you just reading into a joke really, really hard? Like, that feels like satire. And yet she's just like, no, this is evidence of a machine. This is evidence of a machine. This is evidence of the children being targeted. My God. Can we just be done? Can we just call Blair a dumb bitch and be done? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with doing that.
At one time, the community actually was good at. Do y'all remember NAMBLA? NAMBLA was the North American Man-Boy Love Association. It's disgusting to even say that out loud. And that was a group that once upon a time, decades ago, at the beginning of the LGBT rights movement, lashed itself onto the community. And with a swiftness, they were excommunicated. For whatever reason, people are having a bit of an issue kicking out the groomers now. But again, you know, that gay choir, we're coming for your children. That's the G. So let's not just place sole, you know, child praying on one letter in the acronym. It's kind of people from all over doing that.
So, hold on. Are the T's the issue, or is everybody the issue? I feel like I've lost the plot here. I feel like I've lost the plot.
So let's watch someone on the other side of this.
Wait, hold on, Blair. Blair. Do you just completely lose that part of the video where they said gender, like, your gender is something you made up? Like, your gender is something that's not important. Did you miss that part of the video? Did you miss that part? Because I didn't miss that part. I heard that part. And I thought maybe if there's any part of the video that she's going to cover, it's that part. But no, instead she had to go, look at this satire video. I get to throw the gays under the bus too. I feel like there's a reason. I'm starting to understand. And I think I'm okay ending the Blair White video here. But I think I'm starting to understand the reason that Blair White's audience is what it is. It's Baby's first debate. It's Baby's first debate. What do I mean by that? If you are a person who likes getting into arguments on the internet, the most cathartic thing to do in any debate is to criticize someone of hypocrisy. It is the most cathartic thing to do. Is it not? Is it not the most... It feels so good to put somebody in their place for being a hypocrite. It feels amazing. It feels like you're justified. You get to feel like, oh my God, I did the thing. I did amazing. But here's the thing. If you've ever actually studied how to debate, what's that called? What is it called when you do that? Because from my side of the aisle, the word for that is tu quoque. It's a fallacy. It's a fallacy of logic. What Blair decided to do instead of debunking what he said about gender, what he said about what the trans community is doing, what he tried to say, what she instead did was appeal to her audience by using tu quoque and going, no, you do it too. You do it as well. Look at you. You're just as guilty. Because that's the thing that will make her audience happy. Her audience of right-wing sycophants are happy when she's being what Sarah Chikorita called her, a quisling. That's the thing that they want to see. That's the thing that makes them happy. That's the thing that gives them joy. So Uno reverse card. Yeah, a quisling is somebody who collaborates with the enemy force occupying them. So Blair White is trans, but her content, her demeanor, her presentation, her argumentation, it all benefits people who want to eliminate trans and gay rights. She is a token quisling. She is, as the right wing would say. Alright guys, welcome to the end of the video. Thank you for making it this far, especially after that last one. I know it was a bit of a long one, but let's get into the fan art section. The first one we have here is from Absolute Insanity 01. I'm new here, and here's some fan art, which also doubles as pose practice, so here. Thank you very, very much, Absolute Insanity. This is really, really nice. The next one we have here is from Featherboa. A low-effort meme and a slightly higher-effort drawing. TV service will take the fight to the war word toilet. I drew the sketch in the span of one of Cyrus's videos and made the meme and editing while listening to Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Huh. I guess subfaction was chosen. TV, sorry, but TV girl hot. The toilets will lose. An actual conversation that was had. The last one we have here is from Sea Slug Friend, a lower decks Cirrus. No. As always, everybody, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's go ahead and get to the credits.
Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability that Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.